But all right, Mike, listen, with the initial 53, it's evident the Cowboys seem to be doing some gymnastics and maybe even beyond this week and leading into the season. So I wanted to get your take on a few of these potential moves, starting with this visit on Jason Peters. First off, can you give us an update on Jason Peters visit?
Sure. So Jason Peters is in town. He's visiting the Cowboys today. If you look at the contract that he last signed, the one with the Chicago Bears, this isn't a deal that's going to break the Cowboys' bank. They probably will be able to sign him to the practice squad. That's me piecing things together, not anything I've been told directly by the team or from his people, but just based on the reality of what the Cowboys roster is. They would need to obviously clear a spot for him, something that they would hope to avoid initially, and he's got to do this ramp-up phase to get ready to be on the field, much like what Anthony Barr did when he joined the Cowboys during training camp, much like what Malik Hooker did last year, coming off of the Achilles. But he's a football player who's has tremendous experience. But even so, he's been out. He hasn't worn pads since the day that the 2021 season ended. So I would expect the Cowboys to be careful with them in terms of just ramping them up as they do with any player, and probably my guess is that would happen while he's on the practice squad.
There you go.
And then his future will be on the 53, and they'll have to make a move there at some point. But I don't know if it's anything that would force the Cowboys' hand right now in terms of disrupting the gymnastics act that's already taken place to assemble the 53 as it presently looks.
Yeah, you had a tweet about what the roster maneuvering could look like with if a Peters was signed and if an Olesen was signed. Can you explain that to the fans?
Yeah, sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you repeat that?
Sorry, I said you had a tweet where you explained on Twitter about the roster maneuvering. Can you explain to the fans what that would look like if Peters was signed and Olesen, the running back, which I believe has been signed, but you can confirm that, from the Falcons?
Sure. So if the Cowboys were to sign Jason Peters right now, and let's say it happens to the practice squad, he'd be there. The practice squad would be full with the addition as well of Kadri Olesen, former Pittsburgh running back, who spent first few years of his NFL career with the Atlanta Falcons. So your practice squad is full. You can only have a standard elevation allows NFL teams to move up to 2 players every single week of the regular season from their practice squad without exposing that players to waivers after the game. So the Cowboys, as their roster stands right now, they can elevate Cooper Rush week 1, have a backup quarterback. They can elevate Brett Maher week 1 and have themselves a kicker. Those 2 moves would be the Cowboys' standard elevations for the week. If they wanted Jason Peters to be up as well, they couldn't standard elevate him from the practice squad. The only way he's playing is either if a player has COVID, then it could be COVID elevation, which wouldn't count as a standard elevation, or you sign one of those 3 practice squad players, let's say it's Jason Peters, to the 53-man roster, which means you're going to be clearing a spot. You're probably going to try to not waive somebody. You probably want to cut somebody. So you're asking yourself realistically, who's a guy who's got at least 4 years of NFL accrued experience who would be able to not go on waivers, the guy who's not going to play a whole lot against the Buccaneers, and we'll just drop him for a week and kind of take it day by day after that, and maybe kind of go from there. So what that looks like, if it's Terrell Basham or whomever else it would be, you could do like a short-term release and bring up a Peters to the 53, and then kind of decide what you do with that player on Monday. That's hopefully I answered the question as best I heard it, but that's kind of some of the gymnastics that can go into how you make Jason Peters work in the short term.
You briefly touched on the quarterback situation, where right now they have just 1 quarterback on the roster, Dak Prescott, and then 2 on the practice squad. Is there a belief they're going to roll with this for a few weeks? Is that a sense you're getting, and they'll just do the practice squad call-up eligibility thing, or will they eventually put Cooper Rush on the 53-man roster?
So they'll be able to standard elevate Cooper up to 3 times to begin the season. So you could keep Cooper Rush in your practice squad week 1, week 2, week 3, and then for that week 4 game against the Giants, I believe, you're going to have to permanently elevate him by signing him to the 53-man roster, and that would be the future. You keep Will Grier down there as a number 3 quarterback. He's fine there. There's no pressure for the Cowboys to move him up eventually, as long as they're not using up to standard elevations. So that's kind of the situation as it'll be. So you'll have up to 3 weeks of Brett Maher, the kicker, and Cooper Rush, the number 2 quarterback, jumping up to the 53 via standard elevation, and then at which point the Cowboys will have to, sign them to the 53. Now, what does that mean? Do you just simply release Jake McQuaid and then start using his 3 standard elevations? You could. By that point, if injuries have started to, happen and you have players going on IR, that's a very straightforward situation where, you put a player on injured reserve, you suddenly have a 53-man roster spot up. Look, we got a kicker and we got a quarterback who have no more standard elevations, so let's bring that up for good. So those are some of the, options the Cowboys have down the road. That's where we're headed. But right now, I think they're playing it exactly as they should.
Now, Jerry mentioned the other day that Tyler Smith had a little high ankle sprain, but both Tyler Smith and Stephen Jones said, I'm good to go. He's good to go. Did you get a chance to check him out yesterday, warming up? How's he look? How's he moving out there?
Yeah, he looks fine. Tyler Smith, he'll be physically ready to play week 1, to start week 1. I don't sense a whole lot of concern from the Cowboys over the injury, other than it cost them developmental time. And that is something that I remember saying to Calvin Watkins, my colleague. We had like a Twitter space the night that the Cowboys drafted Tyler Smith, and I said one of the most important things for Tyler Smith is just to stay healthy, because he is going to need all the developmental time that he can get. Where this draft pick can go awry, and fortunately the Cowboys have avoided it because this was a minor injury, but what can go awry is if he doesn't get the opportunity that he needs to just develop. We all know that he's not a finished product, and nor should the expectation be for a player drafted number 24th overall to be a finished product. He's got to work on, his hand placement. He's got to work on, his eyes, his vision, his hands and his feet working in unison, all these different things that actually he's come a long way with in a short amount of time, even before the Cowboys drafted him. Just the training that he was getting and improving on some of those technical aspects of his game. But now that he's healthy, he can just pick up where he left off. I mean, he was still working while he was rehabbing in terms of the mental aspects of it, but just getting on the field, getting coaching from Philbin and Blasco, all that part that's critical to his development has resumed. So was it a setback? It was, but it was a pretty short-term one. And the Cowboys overall have been really pleased with the way Tyler Smith has approached self-improvement. He's a professional. It means something to him. He wants to be great. He understands it's going to be a process. And I think it's probably best for Cowboys fans to understand that too, Cowboys media to understand that too, that, look, it's week 1. He's going to be playing at a position where before this practice week, he hadn't done any work in pads since he was at Tulsa. And so it's going to be a process. It was going to be a process even at left guard. And, just whatever it looks like there against the Buccaneers, it probably behooves us all to keep in mind that this is a young, uber-talented, super physical player, a bright future. If he gets a holding, if he gets a false start, some cadence, whatever it may be, none of that takes away from what this player's ceiling is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In closing here, Jerry Jones had one hell of a quote the other day saying, and I quote, "If Dallas was playing in the Super Bowl, Michael Gallup will be available and playing." But this was weeks after Gallup stated it's not possible for him to be out there week 1. So, has he even begun individuals yet? And given that they didn't keep him on PUP, what's the realistic timeline for his return early in this season?
So I would take from Jerry's comments predominantly the fact that Michael Gallup's rehab has gone well, and it has. I think you give credit to the Cowboys medical team for their approach to Michael Gallup's surgery. If you remember back in January into February, a lot of people are asking, when's Michael Gallup having his surgery? Why has it not happened yet? What are the Cowboys doing? What's Gallup doing? Well, there was a plan. They allowed the swelling to reduce. He not only had the ACL tear, but he had an MCL tear, and they were waiting in the pre-op phase to do surgery because it would make the road post-op a whole lot easier, a whole lot smoother, and that's what it's been since February, easy and smooth. Michael Gallup's work with Director of Rehabilitation, Britt Brown, has gone incredibly well. The Cowboys are really excited about this continued progress. Yesterday, when Mike McCarthy was talking about it, he knocked on wood about the entire, total void of setbacks thus far. And so I would just say Jerry's talking because he's really pleased with how Gallup has gone in the direction, all the strides that he has made, even since the start of training camp, seeing him on the rehab field. Obviously now he's running routes, catching passes, and getting confidence back into that left knee. As for when his exact return is, that's not something I've been able to pin down from anyone, from the team, from Gallup himself. People are just kind of taking it week by week, which is what you have to do in this sort of situation. In rehab, you can't get too far, caught looking ahead. You just need to focus on the day and try to win that day, and then stack days together. And suddenly you look up and you're being cleared to practice. You're being cleared to play a game. He's not there yet. He's not going to play week 1, but it's the fact that he's not on PUP allows him to practice whenever the Cowboys give him that green light. He doesn't need to wait until week 5 to do so. So he's just going to be able to build a strong base for whatever that return is. Good chance. I think there's a realistic chance that we see him in September.
Hey, stack good days on top of good days. We'll never be able to escape that Jason Garrett-ism. Thanks, Michael Gelkin of the Dallas Morning News. Continue your great work and providing us with all the updates for the Dallas Cowboys, sir.
My pleasure, buddy. Have a good one.
This video is brought to you by Supreme Lending Dallas. For over 20 years, Supreme Lending Dallas has been your right hand for home buying, stemming from their belief in building customers for life. They have a simple 6-step process that has changed the life of thousands of DFW residents, from loan applications to setup, processing, underwriting, closing, and even post-closing. Supreme Lending Dallas and their 24/7 top-notch customer service will be by your side every step of the way. Make your dream home a reality and apply today at supremelendingdallas.com.